Okay, it is, what?
Eric was standing for the pledge.
Well, I know, but we're not ready yet. Okay, so it is Thursday, February 13th, January 13th. I'm looking ahead. 2022, we'll call meeting to order. Please stand for the pledge. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all, born and unborn.
First of all, I want to thank our citizens for applying to be a part of our advisory committee for ARPA, because I know we're going to get a lot of requests, and we'd like to help as many entities and people as we can. So you will kind of go over applications. We'll go over applications. We'll run them by BKD too to make sure they're, and hopefully it'll expedite getting funds out there. We've got till the end of 2024 to spend roughly $15 million. So.
I think we have the end of 24 to encumber it, and the end of
Yeah.
26 to spend it.
Yeah. So, but we've got BKD on here and we pay them by the minute. So we might go to them first. I don't see any Chiefs banners.
Can you hear us? And then you tell me every time, and I keep thinking I think I'm gonna bring him in. Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. We always have technical.
Oh, I should have gone around and had everybody introduce some stuff. I'm Sam Bushman, presiding commissioner.
Jeff Elster, Eastern District Commissioner.
Mariotto, Western District.
Herb Coon, Roger Schwartz, Alan Mudd, Alan Rinkenbauer, St. Thomas area,
Connie Cunningham.
Eric Hoy, Chief of EMS. Paul Winchester.
Okay, now, go.
All right. So yeah, it's good to see you all, and I'm glad we've got so many here that are interested in money and how it's spent. I will say first off that just this last Thursday, we got the final rule for the funding, which is a big deal. We've been working off of interim rules for quite a while now, so getting the final rule and some new provisions in here, it's very exciting to see how broad that they are kind of allowing us to be. So first off, my name is Teresa Seymour. I'm a director with BKD. I've been helping the county for a little over a year now. When they got their CARES money, we helped implement their ideas and getting those fundings distributed. So hoping to help out along the way as you guys need us to get these funds distributed. But just to kind of go over the ARPA funding, so there's a lot of acronyms for this funding. I'm going to call it ARPA just because it's easier for me to say. There's coronavirus, state and local recovery funds. There's all kinds of different ways. I'll just stick with ARPA so you know what I'm talking about. So they delivered about $350 billion to state, locals, and tribal governments all across the country to support the COVID-19 response. These funds were to be used for governments having the resources to fight the pandemic, support families and businesses struggling with public health and economic impacts, to help maintain public services even amid declining revenues, to help build strong, resilient, and equitable recovery by making investments that support long-term growth and opportunities. So there's kind of a little bit, we have the CARES money that didn't really allow you to do these kind of longer-term projects. That is allowable with this ARPA money, so that is a big change. So in May, the interim rules came out, so we started working with those. I think the county got their first tranche of the money somewhere in May, late May timeframe, so they could use those money as the commissioners desired. So with that said, there was, they gave us kind of the interim rules, which had some things that we submitted on. I'm going to try and update with what the final rules are now. So there's really kind of 4 areas to spend the monies, kind of the bigger areas. There's replacing lost public sector revenue. There's responding to public health and economic impacts of the coronavirus. There's the premium pay, and then there's water, sewer, and broadband infrastructures projects that you can use it on. So, like I said, the final rule gave us a few things, so I'll try to point out what's kind of newer with the final rule and what was kind of standard with the old rules. So one of the biggest pieces that the final rule was this replacing lost public sector revenue. So before, in the interim rule, there was a calculator that you could use. I think GFOA had a calculator. There was a few other calculators, but the main one was the GFOA calculator. That's, you would put a couple certain time periods of time, and whatever revenue lost, you could claim that as an expense. And it kind of made it a really easy way to just be able to use those funds. Well, now in the final rule, they've got what they're calling the standard allowance, or a standard allowance of up to $10 million to use that for. So what these funds can be used for is basically any government services, anything that the government traditionally provided. There's a few exceptions, but very, very broad. It said that with using the funds this way, the reporting requirements are going to be streamlined, is the word they use, streamlined. They haven't given us any guidance about what that streamlined process looks like that, so I can't really talk to that. But I think what they did was, this was kind of, when they got all those public comments about how to use the fund during the interrule time, I think a lot of the smaller governments were like, we don't have the capacity to, administer these funds and stuff. So this is kind of the easy way, in lack of a better word, the easier way to use the funds. That way that these funds can be used and get out in the community as soon as possible. So that is a really big change from the interim rule. The second way, and probably the broadest way, is just what we call support the COVID-19 public health and economic response. So this is pretty big, pretty broad as well. But things like public health, mitigation and prevention, medical expenses, behavioral health care expenses, and even preventing and responding to violence as one of the expenses that could be used if you use this as your reason for the expenditures. Also, they can be used for responding to negative economic impacts by giving it to a beneficiary. So you can do assistance to households, assistance to small businesses, assistance to nonprofits. So kind of similar to the CARES in that way, but there are some different kind of rules for that. So if that is something that you want to try and do, we can talk a little bit more about that. But then just overall kind of assistance to those that were impacted by the coronavirus. The third way is the premium pay. I know you guys have already kind of done the premium pay, went the premium pay route. The final guidance does give you a little bit more broad of what an eligible worker is. So if you wanted to do another premium pay tranche, that would be okay. You could probably get a little bit wider range if you didn't think you went wide enough in your first time around. And then the last one is investment in water, sewer, and broadband infrastructure. So this is kind of the looking forward piece. These are the capital projects that you can kind of put the money towards to, in the future years, make your community a better place as far as infrastructure goes. So that's kind of the quick and dirty, exactly what those funds are to be used for. There's really, like I said, the final rule really gave a big, broad range of things to spend it on. So, especially with that standard allowance, there's a lot of leeway and a lot of different things depending on what the commissioners want to kind of go towards and what your committee think this fund should be spent on. So, happy to answer any questions. Like I said, the final rule is kind of new. We're still kind of developing all of our guidance and stuff based off it. There are some Treasury webinars that you can listen to. I think they had some live, but I think they're all recorded now. But they're an hour, and they really do a good job of kind of explaining the final rule if that was something that you wanted to look at.
And I If anybody's interested, I can send out the website page that this is on. It's only about 700 pages long if you want to read all of that, so.
Roger's
There is
Roger's an
a-
engineer, he would.
Like 44 pages.
Yeah, there's a,
That's it's very nice that they did that. They don't always do that, so it was nice they gave us kind of a Cliff Notes version of it.
that's good.
So, yeah, I don't say too many nice things about the treasury.
Hey, Teresa, this is Harry. On the lost revenue, up to 10 million, but is there still a calculation that is specific to each political subdivision?
Sure, so there's that standard allowance now, that 10 million, but if you wanted to go above and beyond that, you could still do a lost revenue calculation. I can't remember if Debbie and Kristen had done that calculation or just did a kind of a version of one, but I didn't think it came to 10 million.
Oh, no,
So that would,
I think Kristen did a preliminary calculation, and maybe it was 2.1 or something like that. So my question is it up to 10 million based upon your calculation?
Correct.
Okay. So,
correct.
all right, so if she cleaned up that calculation.
So if your calculation was 2 million, you could do the 10, like, that would be, you could do the 10 million, up to the 10 million. The 2 million doesn't matter.
Oh, really?
Unless it was, like, say 15 million. Then you could do up to 15 million. And that makes sense.
Well, our number, our big number is almost 15 million, right? We're going to get 7.4 twice.
Yeah, the 14.
Yeah,
Oh, I'm sorry.
I rounded off to 15
Okay,
million.
14.9 is
Yeah.
sort of the total. Okay.
And I believe you have 1.3 already geared toward the premium pay as well.
Was it
1.5
1.5? We think it's 1.5 to premium. Okay.
with the
Is
benefit.
that part
I
of
think that's what the
14.9?
tax was.
Uh-huh.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, so we can't have any numbers that exceed 14.9. That's the max. And we've sort of thrown a bucket out there and put 1.5 in it and called premium pay, and the premium pay has just begun, right?
It will be beginning.
Yeah.
Well, begin on the next page, too.
Yes.
Okay. What I'm hearing from some of the smaller communities, the Russellvilles, the Lomans, the Centertown, St. Martin's perhaps too, on the west side, and they're saying, hey, can you help with the sewer? Can you help? Centertown has put automatic water meters in. A lot of them don't have their own water system. It's a water district, but if the community has one, maybe the water districts, actually we heard from a water district or two, haven't we?
Yeah, 1 and 4.
So, we funnel all those things to you guys and gals to say, to take a look at. I know Centertown had previously, before this ever came along, decided to go to automated water meters. And they came up a little short, and they were asking to finish their, but it wasn't a lot of money, like another 10 or 20,000. But we're going to be getting some of those kind of things, I believe.
But see, every community received ARPA money. So again, it depends on population. Some it was just a few thousand. So we could actually do some matching funds maybe to put with the money they got too, right, Teresa?
Correct, so.
Yeah.
So what I see a lot of communities doing are kind of getting together and doing big projects for the whole area, like a big broadband project or a big water sewer project or something that everybody kind of contributes some of their ARPA money towards. And I will say that as far as like, if you have another grant, like another government grant, the $10 million can be used for matching. Anything above that, it seemed like on the treasury, they said it wouldn't be. So I don't know if you have another government grant that you need to match funds towards. Part of that 10 million could be used to match
Good.
another
Good.
grant, possibly.
As,
Just a high-level overview of the infrastructure, besides what I just mentioned. Our Public Works Department has its eye on some stormwater work, and we understand stormwater is part of this. So we have some issues out in the county that places, when the creek comes up, they get wet, and so they need some retention basins. And I know, I can tell you that Eric Landwehr, our Public Works Engineer, Director, not engineer, he's the director. He is an engineer, but he's got his eye on a couple of stormwater projects. And once again, we have to get this money spent by the end of '26, encumbered by the end of '24.
And broadband, we started out looking at that with the new Economic Development Committee, and we've got more people getting state money, federal money. There's Whisper coming in, there's Calabite, there's Como, there's Socket. So we're not ignoring broadband, but until we know who's doing what, broadband isn't probably one of our high priorities, just because some entity may very well already have that spot covered.
Eric, would you like to come to the table and mention a letter that you and the sheriff have co-authored?
Good afternoon. Earlier this morning, the sheriff sent a joint letter on behalf of Cole County EMS and the Sheriff's Department requesting that the commission encumber $2.5 million of the ARPA money for specifically public safety use only. The reason why we feel this is necessary is that with some of the intricacies of public safety and the topics that we are looking to purchase, we would ask that those funds be set aside so we can follow our normal approval process with the three commissioners. Nothing against, public input or anything like that. We're not trying to hide anything. We just request that some of this may be of sensitive nature and that the money be set aside outside this pool of money. In that document, you would have the explanation of what we were looking to spend that on. All of it is critical infrastructure, as we kind of wrapped up in closing there. All of those items are on our 10-year strategic plan. We do have the unique ability to basically move technology and response capabilities from a public safety standpoint ahead by a full decade in one fell swoop. So we would just ask that you would consider that and keep that in mind as we move forward in this process.
Okay.
Any questions from anybody?
Talk a little bit more about, and if you can't, I get it, but kind of what you're thinking about with that. And I guess the reason I'm asking is there's so many pieces right now with public safety regarding behavioral, mental health, and I know you guys are really getting hit with that. So I'm just curious if you can.
Yeah, so the big thing is touching on a lot of the things that our BKD representatives have talked about. So from a communication standpoint, improving our footprint not only for our two agencies, but all the county agencies, making it more interoperability so that if we did have a large-scale incident, that we would have the ability to communicate and do some of those sorts of things. Specifically for the sheriff, I believe that he was asking for some funds to fund sending
go get some of my
patrol
medicine.
officers to the academy and doing some of that sort of stuff. And then one portion that is directly, I think, tied to all of this is EMS is asking for new ventilators to improve patients who have respiratory illnesses and give us greater capabilities. And I think that's been highlighted by some of the requests from the hospital and what we've seen during this this pandemic. But really the big piece kind of ties back into communications and IT infrastructure so that all the public safety departments in the county have the same capabilities.
Yeah, the mental county, I think, is going to be it.
Got it.
Eric, Dr. Kaywood is our medical director for the health department. He's concerned. Peter Lakowski we've talked to too, because we have some serious issues with depression, suicides, mental issues. So that's something that we will probably address. That's not, they're talking radios and
Yours is more.
different things like that, but it's something that we will be addressing because these are,
Huge threat.
yeah, As we get into this, probably what we need to do, Teresa, is talk about establishing a committee and what other committees are doing, and then we can talk more about issues that are gonna come before us. But, so we have 9 members. So do we appoint a chairman and a vice chairman, and what are the other entities that you're working with doing?
I'm not seeing a ton of community kind of advisory stuff. I'm seeing more surveys getting sent out to the community and that kind of being their community outreach. I don't know if you need to appoint somebody as the head of the committee. Are you gonna sit in on all of the?
I will be the representative for the commission,
Okay.
since
Okay.
these two
So-
guys, it was unanimous.
Since ultimately the decisions are the commission to make.
Will be
budget or
the commission will ultimately make the decision, and they will come through you as well.
But, so what do you guys envision this committee doing for you? Then give them a direction, I guess, of what you want.
I think we're gonna get a lot of requests from everybody, so if we wanna look at all of them, if we wanna let you go through them and say, this is doesn't meet the criteria, this is stupid, you narrow it down for us a little bit. But
As far as the needs assessment goes, Teresa, do you see that going on most communities' websites, try to get input from the community?
Yep.
Is that about how you see?
So do you have an application that we can put on our website for different entities to apply for ARPA money?
I mean, a whole application process, that would probably be, I mean, if we want to do it like CARES kind of way, how we use the Salesforce application process and things like that, that would be a whole different thing than just say a survey of what kind of funds do you need and something like that as a first step. Because if you start having people apply for money and you don't know if you're going to give them money, yeah, I'd be a little bit hesitant on that, but.
I just don't want hundreds coming before us to make a plea for money. So if we can have something on paper, I figure it's,
Yeah, I think for this committee, what you're gonna be trying to more focus on is, what do we want the buckets to be? Like, do we want the buckets to be, 2.5 million for what he was talking about earlier, 10 million for capital projects, capital improvement projects, how should the money, what bucket should we be thinking about to put this money into? And then you as commissioners kind of put it in, like, what we get at the end of the day.
For the application
So
process,
the
then?
community, the community tells you, hey, this is what it seems like we need around, and you decide, okay, seems like we need a lot of money here for mental health issues, we're having a lot of mental health stuff. And like I said, with that $10 million, it's almost kind of it could be spent on that $2.5 million for the police and that public emergency and EMS and stuff like that. But it also, you could justify it for other uses too. So that $2 million standard allowance is really kind of it's a really nice thing to just have it in that bucket as you kind of work through this process of what you want to spend that money on. Because that's really the easiest way to get the money spent is that $10 million. But if the community needs says, hey, we need to get household assistance out there, hey, our nonprofits are really hurting, we need to get money to them, hey, our businesses, can't find employees, we need to get some help to them, whatever ends up being decided as what this fund should go to. I mean, that's commissioner's decision at the end of the day, but they're just bringing to you what the community's telling them.
Alan, do you want to say something?
Yes, I had a question. What is the expectation for a group that comes forward with a request? How much documentation will be required to provide? Do you want estimates of cost? Or do you want just a general plan?
It's a very fair question. I don't know if I have the answer, but I will tell you that, back in the CARES days, we accepted application from not-for-profits up to 25,000 was,
Was one of the application processes.
the application process was, hey, we're a 501c3 organization, here's our mission, that's sort of the introduction, and we're asking for X dollars to further our mission. Sort of, I mean, that's, and did we put this was before my time here, actually, so was it a $25,000 max that we?
It was that we had a lot of the stuff out there, like she was talking about, you had a lot of the details out there already, up to that amount, so they could apply for that. And yes, they had to supply lots of documentation of everything that went through BKD to.
And that's not to
final
say,
approval.
and I'm sorry, that's not to say that's what we should do this time. We'd love your input on that. And we had fewer dollars to spend then. It was more in the $9 million area than 14 or 15. But then again, we didn't do any infrastructure, did we, with that?
No.
Okay, so that could bleed off something. Back to the premium pay, when we sort of said, hey, let's use a bucket with 1.5 million in it, was that determined that could fund it for a year, or?
At the level we are right now, it may be a little bit less, maybe a little bit more, depending on the two different levels that we're
Right.
at, yes.
So that 1.5 million for premium pay was based upon what we thought the request would be for a year worth of premium pay. We had small businesses in that first group, but it was very limited, like
Yeah.
$5,000, was it? So we had a few restaurants that said, hey, look, we're hurting, we can't open the doors, but we do drive-through or something. So there were a handful of those kind of things.
It was mainly schools we started, and then we went with the hospitals and our medical entities, and but see, the schools have received money,
I tell you what would be good to circulate to the committee is that final report, spreadsheet that broke it down about 5 or 6 or 7 columns.
On the CARES money?
On the CARES money. City, it had a lot of city money, it had a lot of school money,
Right.
it had 2 hospitals, and it had the not-for-profits, and it had a few other things and we used some of it for salaries in public safety and health, and EMS.
And that money was a lot different. That money was to attack things as they were happening, to get people safe for the schools, and nobody else got that money. It was just the counties that got that, and we were sending it out to everybody. Like Sam says, this money, the ARP money, or the Americans First, the cities are getting that money, the schools got some of that money, and even businesses are getting some of that money. So it puts a different perspective on this too, this money, so I can send that out.
and see, I
That'd
think
be- that'd be
Jefferson
great.
City, didn't they get, what, 8 million or
Well,
something?
yeah, I
So
think-
we can actually do some joint, here in Jefferson City, we could maybe do some joint things with the city and their ARPA money, which will make our dollars go farther.
And that was gonna be my question, is could we find out what, not only Jefferson City, but the small cities, how much money they get out of this ARPA funds, so that because if you start looking at infrastructure projects,
Yeah.
that money's not gonna go very far. You're gonna spend it in a hurry.
And it was just a few thousand, I think the highest was maybe 200,000.
If you want to know the math on this, I think if you take $195 and change times the population of a place, that's the money they receive. So rough and dirty, if $196 times 77,000 Cole Countyans, that's just a little over 15 million. So I'm a little bit off on either the population or the dollar per person. So for the city of Jefferson, if it's 40,000 people, I'm not sure, you could take 40,000 times 195, and you're going to be really close. And I suspect for other political subdivisions, it may be that $195 a head. That's,
7.8.
I think that's the
Yeah.
city's number.
Yeah, I think it was close to 8 million. I just round everything off.
Teresa, if you can get me a report on that for surrounding area, the monies they've received.
But I think
Is
we
that
could, if
something
we
you can-
partner with them, and add money to their kitty, we can go a lot farther. Yes?
The, understanding what you said is that you're going to get a request from anybody and everybody. And once you have those requests, you're going to consider it ranking in terms of importance and cost. So I don't think there's any doubt in my mind that there's going to be a lot more requests than we've got money to deal with. But if you could partner with the city of Jefferson, you'd go a long ways to make the impact greater. And, you know, I think that from what I've heard, there's quite a few entities that are going to be coming forward with it. So it's going to be a difficult task to decide who gets money, who doesn't.
Yeah.
No, I think that's very important. Why we need to have some sort of consistent application process so we can rank these things to see in their application, I mean, for the leverage, if they have an idea of leverage max money for infrastructure projects or for another project that might be out there. I think we need to start looking at our communities, reaching out to touch with, I hope you have been in touch with folks down in St. Thomas, but appreciate that. And trying to get the plan every year. And so I think for us to review it, I mean, some people bring it in on a scratch piece of paper, so I need this much money. Someone else does a pretty elaborate proposal that's got the detail in it that we might need to kind of help prioritize and how it ties into the ARPA money. I don't have to be elaborate, but I mean, it's just be nice to have something that's kind of consistent. If they have money to put toward it, or match money, how it ties into some of the priorities.
You guys as commissioners, have you made any direction at all as far as designating any of this money to different pots for infrastructure or for premium pay? You've obviously already made a decision on,
But before today, I thought our lost revenue number was 2 million, but it's 10, I guess. So that's a super flex, anything goes kind of thing. So that kind of, but other than that, the 1.5 for premium pay was really, there might have been some discussion early on infrastructure, but I don't think we ever decided the size of that bucket.
No. This is the final rules she gave us today. We're hearing them at the same time, so.
I don't want to influence the group, but it would be nice that in 20 years, we look back and we say, that was bought with ARPA money, something that has a life,
Yes.
rather than at the end of 26, it's gone, and we never
can't
saw,
see it anymore.
can't see it anymore. So I don't know what that, what that percentage should be, but if in 20 years we can't look back, or we can't look, not back, but just look at what we have and say, well, none of that's left. Maybe we didn't do enough infrastructure then, perhaps. But then again, as you know, infrastructure is going to chew it pretty fast, or
Oh.
it could.
So,
Yes, sir.
quick question on the CARES Act funding. You set some priorities, as you mentioned. You did some in healthcare, you did some for small business and others. Is there any unfinished business in that first tranche that you all think, or did you feel like you filled all the needs that were?
Kind of responding to what was going on at the time. You know, it was immediate needs of getting people the masks, the PPE, all that kind of stuff. I don't believe there's anything out there. I mean, obviously, some of that stuff is ongoing for a lot of people, that they have gotten suppliers to get that stuff. I don't know, our own departments.
You might ask Jeff if he would like to buy masks again.
Hey, we're getting rid of those, by golly. We've been giving those out. There's actually boxes out here because, you know, those are medical grade masks.
That's what's left over.
They're in great demand right now.
Matter of
so-
fact, I think all committee members are required to take 5 boxes.
Well, that's your gift for being on
Well,
the committee.
it's,
So,
Yes.
so yeah. I might be-
EMS has been delivering those, and I know IC, I think school has asked maybe for some masks, so, you know, there's 50 medical masks in each box, so, yeah, I don't think they're gonna last that long now.
I might be falling in that same trap, though, not for the mask and stuff, but for the testing right now, I think is something that really needs to try to be addressed. Rapid tests.
The phone is ringing right now on testing, but even when you say, let's spend the money on tests, where can you find them? Do you have an inside,
So we've
Biden
dragged,
announced today that he's ordered another 500 million.
okay?
He's got 500 on order supposedly, and he ordered another
Well,
500.
DHSS doesn't have them, and everybody directs us to DHSS. The governor's office goes DHSS. Yesterday, SEMA goes DHSS, and DHSS says, so I mentioned on our WebEx, I said, maybe we'll hijack a truck. Just kidding, just kidding.
we were able to obtain some testing supplies today for cost. Hopefully those will be reimbursed through federal public assistance money. But it is down to a point where maybe we were with masks a couple years ago, where people are charging decent amount of money for tests that you should generally be able to get for free.
Are those the rapid at-home tests?
Yes. So from our standpoint, the rapid test is really what we need to ensure continuity of services. You know, if somebody comes in with symptoms, I can give them, you know, the PCR, the lab test, but I have to send them home until that comes back. With a rapid test, you know, within 15 minutes, we know whether they're safe to wear a mask and continue working or not.
Yep. Oh, Teresa, I mean, like I said, we're paying you, and I don't mean to say that, but is there anything else that you want to tell us?
I did want to point out a couple things. Yeah, I did want to point out a couple things. I know you guys are talking a little bit about the assistance pieces, so like assistance to households, assistance to business. So with the assistance to household, and again, Thursday is when I got this, so I'm still wrapping my head around it, but for assistance to households, or all the assistance program, they have what's called impacted households and disappropriately impacted households. So there's kind of two tiers, and instead of having to like look at each person and tell you their story of how COVID impacted them, they can be in levels. So like if they're low to moderate income and they've got the treasuries lined out what that means, you can just, that's enough. That qualifies them. Now, it doesn't give you amounts or anything. You would have to make that decision, but you could use that as more of a guideline instead of having to, read through applications and say why this person deserves it more or less. You could just say, okay, we're going to give money to disappropriately impacted households. This was what qualifies that. If you qualify, please apply here. Prove that you qualify, and then, that's it. You can do that sort of for like the businesses and the not-for-profit. It's more of there's a bunch of different ways you can qualify them. Decreased revenues, increased costs, something like that. It's a little bit not quite as easy as given to households. You would have a little bit more to do, but it's not like, if you remember with CARES, we were looking at, individual expenditures for each thing and making sure they qualify. It wouldn't quite be like that. It would be more like you set a number for a household, say, just throwing something out there, $500 a household if they meet this certain qualification that's given to us by the Treasury.
And that'd be a one-time
That's a
only.
little bit. If you wanted to see, it's up to you.
Okay.
Yeah, if you did it early and then at the end you still needed to spend some of the funds, which I doubt.
The cost of living is on everything. So, it's on food, it's on product that stores get in. 8% inflation? And I don't see it. Gas just took a 10-cent jump again, but it's up at 80 some dollars a barrel now, so.
But I also agree that, like, making, using it on those big projects is just a great idea. Going
Yeah.
to other cities and other, rural areas and helping them kind of build up their infrastructure with this money is, I think,
Yeah.
a great use of the funds as well.
I think in the long run, that's probably best, but.
Administration-wise.
So, we need to come up with basically something to put on our website so that people can apply.
So maybe work backwards. I'm thinking that working backwards, you all make the final decision. And our job is to kind of gather, kind of take the pressure off of you all in verbal form and to do the evaluation piece. To say, this group over here needs to come to you. Am I doing it right? And this group over here really doesn't meet the criteria that's set.
Yeah, yeah.
And, my thoughts on the application are, and I really liked your comment, because you're gonna get some that are really wacky, and some that are gonna be so detailed, but I think what you said about 20 years from now, what kind of impact we have, I think that's the crucial thread to put throughout the whole application with it, so that it's not just flat right now, but what is it gonna do for Cole County down the road? So I kind of see it as a whole process of whatever you put on the website to try to get people in. It's almost like you gotta have that tool to evaluate, to kind of just keep it moving. I don't know, maybe I'm getting too, in my head, technical with it. But I think you gotta have those steps that you know that you're gonna get on your application process.
Yeah, because otherwise you're going to get
You're
thousands.
gonna get a million.
Yeah, you're going to say, why did I ever ask to be on this committee?
We're gonna have to bring it through you all first at BKD to evaluate them and make sure they qualify.
Well, I guess I'm still kind of, when you say applications, are you wanting people to apply for money? Like, I feel like that's a step farther down. You need to decide how much money is gonna go to each of these groups first. And by doing, I thought this committee was gonna be more kind of helping you figure out what in the community needs the money. Like, I don't know if these people need to make calls or anything like that, but just helping you guys determine the needs of the community. Not so much, let's just get a bunch of applications and see what happens, but a survey that says, gives them a list of 10 to 15 things that, hey, rank on 1 to 5 what the most important thing you think is for the community or something like that, like a survey that you can send out to households or invite them to come onto the website to fill something like that out. I think just having them fill out an application just seems a little bit farther down the line.
Yeah,
If you're gonna maybe do like I said, the household income, then we could do an application process.
I think I'm in the same place as you are. We're gonna decide how big the buckets are, or how much we put in each bucket.
Okay.
And then we'll
And that's what I
decide.
think the committee should be for, is deciding the buckets. They don't have to necessarily.
Okay. So we get to that
go
point.
legal application.
We get to that point, then we figure out the application process. Then do you all evaluate them, or is that something we're gonna have to do to make sure they qualify, or is that?
Yeah, I mean, up to you guys, we can do that. We can use a system like we did in the past with CARES for an application process.
You could actually be the final, after our committee brings them to us, and then we look at them and we say, yes, this meets the criteria, this doesn't, then you could be the final say, or, because there might be something that we think, oh yeah, and you might say, well, so,
Yeah.
I'd do it
But
the other
like I
way.
said, with these buckets, like that 10 million is just so broad. Like you can spend that on basically anything except like revenue replacement as far as tax replacement and I think pension payments, and you can't pay debt with it. But basically anything else within the government. So if you're, hey, we're gonna use that 10 million, that's gonna be our governmental stuff, and then kind of make buckets individually for that. And then whatever is above that 10 million that you have to use kind of some of the other guidance on, decide what you want to use that money on. So like you've already used 1.5 on the premium pay, So what's that other 3 million kind of gonna look like, and where is it gonna go?
So I'd rather do
Does
it
that make sense?
the opposite way. They tell us if they qualify before we even have to look at them. I don't want to be looking at them if they don't even qualify. We're paying them a butt ton of money.
Yeah,
so
but they're gonna be looking at a heck of a lot more.
I don't care. It's what we're paying them. They can look at it, and it takes the work off of our shoulders and off the committee. So if somebody's not even qualified for it, then I think this shouldn't even come across their desk. So, but I'm just one.
Well, with, which, this amazes me, this $10 million number that says spend it the way you want. Basically, almost anything qualifies. I mean, you can't buy drugs for a habitual, we can't buy alcohol for an alcoholic, we can't buy drugs for a drug addict, all right? So we'll cross those two off the list.
Yeah,
but-
roads, bridges, construction,
but-
health services.
Can't be
police,
illegal,
fire,
immoral,
Literally anything.
but
You can use that.
So are other communities and, well, public health,
Well, I'm not saying you can't still like kind of designate that within the 10 million, so, you know.
right, I mean, we could say we've actually got 10 million and we've got 4.8.
yeah, that we can,
And that 10 has got a lot of flex in it, 4.8, not so much.
it's a good start.
Still got a lot of flex.
That's a good
True,
start.
right, still a lot of flex, but but the feds have said this 4.8 has to fit in some of these other columns, like water, sewer, broadband.
But I think between our two water districts and
We
between,
got more than two.
I have two that have applied already or contacted me.
I'll bet you if we do things for two, we'll hear from more.
Oh,
than
yeah,
two,
oh, yeah,
but maybe not.
but,
I retired from DNR, and I can guarantee you got a lot of water and wastewater issues from everything we need to get rid of.
yeah, so I think that's,
Upgrades that can be.
Public Works is already
That's something that goes
looking,
online, too, right?
okay. That's a good start then, so we can just, we got the $10 million in this bucket, so then we just need to figure out what the other 4.8, but,
In that rule that they give eligible activities examples of what's available.
Yes.
So if you have these 4 different categories, it would be nice, perhaps on your website, or however you want to do it, to list all those kind of fundable activities that would be available to people have a sense of the broad breadth and scope of what this is all about.
Yeah, and that's similar to surveys that we've done, or that I've seen, that like kind of list out, and this was with the intermural, but like, would you want it to be spent on water projects? Would you want it to spend on, you know, broadband projects, assistance to households, assistance to businesses? So you have like, you know, 10, 15 things on there, and they just maybe a ranked system on what people think it is. And I mean, it doesn't have to go out to the whole community. This is what this committee would be for. If you guys want, it doesn't have to go, like, you guys could be the representatives of the community, so you guys go gather information with, you know, what they think would be the appropriate way. Because that's kind of why I thought the committee was kind of, you take the community's ideas and bring them to the commission.
so can you send us, copies of the surveys, so we have something to,
Yeah, I'll see if I can find one. Like I said, it's based on the interim rules, so it'll be a little different now, but I'll see what I can find.
okay. Yes,
So are you wanting the committee to give input on what we think the most pressing needs are within the county? That
I guess we need to figure out what the buckets are. And then that's what I envision is kind of having you all give us your vision of how much to put in them. Is that kind of where you guys were thinking too?
That's a good starting place.
Because I mean, that's why we got the committee, is so that we weren't gonna go out to the whole community, right?
Yeah.
We're gonna try.
But the committee, I mean, you could do a Survey Monkey or your coffee
Yeah.
club or your church or your,
Lions, or Knights of Columbus.
Well, Rogers and
Civic Club.
everything, so.
you're part of the community. You touch a lot of people and you hear a lot of stories. So it just broadened our network, I think, by having you folks added
So
to
then that
the.
would be our homework, is to get the buckets figured out.
I would just use the 10 million right off the bat, so that,
Well, but I agree, but the 10 million, if you threw that 10 million over there, there's a gentleman there who, along with the sheriff, is saying, how about 2.357, right?
Correct.
Of that. So that's a sort of sub-bucket off the 10 million bucket.
yeah.
And so the question would be, does the public safety funding fall into either of the buckets that have been established?
Correct. I think it could. I think
Yeah.
that's legit.
Yeah, I would
I mean,
think.
it could come from either side, right?
Standard allowance
Well-
or into the COVID mitigation. It would just be easier.
Yeah.
If it fell into the 10 million standard.
Yeah, I think the maintaining public services is pretty broad,
Right.
so.
Yeah, very broad.
Okay.
All right, so what's next? So we got our homework, we need to get our homework done before the committee can really act, but do we need to, we were talking about they need to have a chairperson, we need to figure out the next meetings and.
Yeah, because evidently we've got some people who have a hard time making it during the day,
So
so.
can we do WebEx meetings too? So if they're out at the job site or something, they can step away for an hour and.
I think Debbie can tell the folks how to do this by WebEx going forward, yes.
So that's all I was gonna say too. We can make the chambers here available for the meetings. We can set it up because we do have everything set up for it. We can set up a meeting. You can either dial in for the meeting or you can be here in person.
Right.
Okay. So whoever wants to be the chairperson, stay sitting.
Oh, there you are.
We got
I
I saw him raise his hand.
Do we have, no, I am, no, I agree. Roger, I nominate Roger.
Let the
Do we
record
need
show.
a vice chair? Somebody raise your hand.
When you raise your hand, you know.
Connie?
No, I was gonna get Sam as well.
No, I can't. You're the advisory, you're it. That'll teach you. So who wants to be the vice chair?
You know, volunteering for something that you
There you go.
Don't know what you're.
Vice Chair, Alan Mudd.
what you're getting into.
Yeah, we got you. So we have Roger Schwartz as the chairman and Alan Mudd as the vice chair. Thank you, gentlemen.
Well, that train
I-
ran over there.
I mean, honestly, we don't have all the answers right now, but we want to make it as easy on you guys and try to give y'all some direction. And I really think we're trying to figure out our direction too. So this was the first meeting, and I don't want meetings that last 2 hours. We should have stand-up meetings because they don't take as long. People are ready to get out of there, so. But I think we got a little bit accomplished today, and like I said, we've got our homework, so.
Yeah.
Can I ask you three questions?
Yes, ma'am.
Absolutely.
What kind of questions and responses and conversations are community members having with you all, other than coming and asking, how to apply for funds? Are people happy with things? And I'm just trying to figure out the tone of the county right now. Not you all, but the tone of the county.
I think they see that we have some money, and so they're just trying to figure out
Yeah.
how they can use it and
Okay.
if it's available.
But you're
and-
getting, because the couple of the articles in the paper have been good and positive, and so you're getting some feedback, I guess, is,
Yeah.
okay.
I think
Originally, it
we're
was
gonna-
broadband.
Yeah.
And that's why we had a broadband task force. And then we found out that
Everybody's doing it.
that wasn't, and then, in December, January, no, last year already, the library was asking because they have been impacted. The Salvation Army, I just had an email where we need more housing in the evening, at night for our homeless, and so, there are lots of needs. And the water districts were asking back before we knew what the requirements were too. So far, I haven't really had individuals. I know small business, restaurants, things like that are, you can't find employees. The cost of meat, the cost of everything is gone up. The Wall Street Journal was talking today, even just little things like cups for hotels. There's a shortage, and now China, they've shut down again, so we're going to have shortages all over.
Do y'all still own the water system in Eugene, or is
No.
it being sold?
That was sold to American Water, I think, so.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thanks for asking.
Otherwise, I was gonna say, there's another.
No.
Right.
Oh, that took a while.
Well,
but it's
Teresa,
gone.
do we need, we can let you go, and again, I'm not trying to be cheap, but I am.
No, I will send you that listing, and I'll update it for some of the final rule stuff, so, you can do whatever you want, but I would just recommend maybe a rank
Yeah.
these items on.
And I want to see a big Chiefs flag back there after we win this
Next
weekend.
time, I promise.
Yeah.
Get you a big old star back there. I'll send you some blue paint.
Thank you.
You gotta send some green paint to her, Jeff?
Yeah, why not?
You got all kinds of colors.
Yes, Alan.
And it's been mentioned, and I've heard it when I was teaching and afterwards, there's such a shortage of mental health
Mhm.
services within the state, within the city, within the county. And, I'd like to see it, if there's a request coming forward, get something started to address that need. It's not just school-age kids, although there's a big need there as well. And, I think, as Barry said, ideally, if some of the money is spent in such a way that there's long-lasting improvement within the community, we call it seed money to get something going, but it's an overwhelming need. We're not going to be able to address it with money that is coming here, but something needs to get started, and that's an area that is critically needed.
Yeah, I think Dr. K. Wood's already working on that, and then I think there's a tour, an open house of this facility, but Peter Lakowski I've been talking to too, so, yeah, we are aware of
Here's a really simplified way to look at it, in my opinion. We're getting about $200 for every person in the county. How do you want your $200 spent, just percentage-wise? What percent of it should go for infrastructure? What percent of it should go for mental health issues? What percent of it should go for public safety, broadband? Everybody's got $200 skin in the game, in a way. That's why we have that money, 196 actually, or whatever it is. How do you want your share of that spent? So somebody might say, I want to put all my money on X. Okay, but it's one way to look at it. And so if somebody pins you, or if you pin somebody down, you've got to tell me how to spend your 196. Just give me percents. One way to look at it. Connie, your question about, what are you hearing? To me right now, that's a very good question. Well, you know what I'm hearing mostly is what I want it done for, does that qualify? That's the question I hear.
Okay.
So,
And that's
Uh,
to a lot of people, so.
So some of the smaller burgs on the west side are saying, look, we've spent some money on a street and curbs and gutters, and we ran out of money. Can we ask for some money to finish that project? Those are, it's kind of that area of, if we ask for money, of course, is it available? But my ask, is it out of character to ask for it because we're going to get told no because it doesn't qualify? Those are the kind of questions I'm getting.
Well, and it has, I mean, it does have such a huge impact, and I mean, and to be entrusted with this much money,
Right.
you three have a lot on your shoulders, and so I just was curious. if
Sure. No, that's a
you
fair
were
question.
Picking up the phone and saying, hey, give me in for this, or, you know, what about this area over here and that, so.
Testing seems to be the number one issue right now.
Yeah.
And they're really, until
That's gonna be
we,
gone in a month.
yeah, so it's, but testing, when
Yeah, so if
we're
we
even
order them,
hearing
that's when they show up.
from elected officials, we need test kits. And testing is the main thing that people come to me about. I want to get tested. And what we have, 551 at American Legion, and they had one lady who drove 40 minutes to get tested. That was Sunday, and they're going to do it again the 23rd, I think. But
So a year
right now it's testing.
And a year ago, we were sitting here talking about needing a vaccine
Yeah.
and how to get the vaccines. And then 2 years ago, a little bit later, we were talking about PPE, trying to get equipment and masks and gloves and everything. So it is funny how this pandemic just keeps bringing up new.
Well, with this pandemic, it's a story of shortages. From PPE initially,
Bingo,
testing initially, staffing,
yeah.
testing again, vaccines. It's all a process, and we've been chasing our tail through this whole
Bingo.
process. And I don't know if there's anybody that has a crystal ball or anybody that can see what's next, where we can make prudent investments. But if there's a chance for this committee to lean in a little bit and think about, I think as Harry said, what are the future things versus what's the here and now,
Yeah.
would be an interesting thing to think about. One question I was going to ask you all, obviously coming out of the association world, there's a state association for the counties. Have they shared any best practices of counties that are going down a similar process that you are, that there might be some learnings from them of how they might have set up committees or what things like?
I haven't heard much from MAC, we call it, Missouri Association of County, or the CCAM, County Commissioners Association of Missouri. However, we have about 3 days scheduled in February for annual training. And I know it's a part of the agenda. That's like the second week of February.
What others have done.
Right.
Because there might be some refinements that we can do along the way that might improve our productivity and output.
But nobody's probably got anything done at this point because final rules came out this week, it sounds like. so
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
nobody's been
so
able to
this was really good. Yeah.
Timing wise, to hear that.
They're probably in the same process or point of the process as us right now. So,
Well, do we want to schedule another meeting and try to get more?
What kind of timeline you guys looking at here to try to get a decision? 6 months or?
December of '26.
I understand that.
for our decision on the buckets,
Yeah.
So,
I mean,
um,
for the committee to have the work done, to look at what's out there.
I think it's going to evolve. It's going to evolve over. I wouldn't I wouldn't plan more than 2 weeks ahead. Saying that within 2 weeks we want
CARES
to get.
kept changing.
We want to get this much done. Maybe the buckets and
I'd like to see us have the buckets figured out in 2 weeks. I'd say even next week if I wasn't gonna be gone, but I'd say that'd be something to shoot for. I like that idea. I don't know if we think there's anything else we need to do in that time frame, or is there anything else you all suggest? Or would ask us to have for you, or?
That sounds like a good framework, and I think the more direction and framework and organization we have, the more effective we're going to be as a lead. Given, and
think one thing that help me is, yeah, would be if we had any of the guidance that comes out of this, about how to spend priorities, budget stuff. I think it would be helpful just for me to have. I plan on going back and talking to my communities, groups and organizations that are there, and I want to talk to some of them.
Yeah.
Biggest issues out in St. Thomas, we don't have any cell service.
Yeah.
Cell service is there. Early response time. How through water and all that growth going on there. So, man, that's where a lot of that focus is.
Yeah.
And so forth.
The other thing that would be helpful is, in addition to setting those buckets, and I think that's a prudent step, is there's an additional refinements in your thinking in terms of how this committee is going to operate on that function, direction from you all.
Do we want to tentatively set a date for 2 weeks from now, 27th, and have Debbie, because we're missing 4 members. So we need to find out, if this was just a one-time only, they couldn't make it, or if there's others who are working and can't do it, and if they, if they can do a WebEx. 'Cause I hate evening meetings, but if an evening meeting works best, we can do an evening meeting. I have no issue with early morning meetings either, but again,
You've been great help here.
So 7 a.m., 27th, all right.
hey, I'm
Or Dr.
usually around about 6 o'clock.
We don't want anybody falling asleep in the afternoon on us, especially with this holiday.
But we can start with Bloody Marys.
So-
The next meeting?
Why don't we just set it, and then I will have Debbie send out an email to the rest of and see,
Send it to everybody.
yeah, send it to everybody and just see,
Is the time decent for you all? Do y'all, I guess the same was kind of getting at that. Is there a different time?
That's 2
Just
weeks.
gotta throw it out there, and whoever works,
That's 2 weeks, so,
And I'm fine with an evening meeting too if we have
Yeah.
to.
So I gotta mix in with everything else.
Okay, so,
One final question is, if we have thoughts or observations, over the next couple of weeks, who do we direct those to?
I think you're free to call all 3 of us.
Yeah.
One of us.
if you send it to any of us, we're gonna share it.
Great, thank you.
We're gonna share it, and probably, depending on what it is, we might share it with Chipoy, we might share it with our health department, we might,
yeah, if you
because
want
we
us to
have a
push
lot
it.
of partners that, that know a lot more than we do.
Yeah, if you want us to push it out to everybody, we can do that, or you can reply all on the emails if you
Yeah.
want to talk about some stuff, so.
Yeah, our business cards are out there on the counter, but,
You get it all.
But,
You want my name and phone number.
yeah.
I like that. Thank you so much for volunteering on this.
Show me how to get it.
Yeah, thank you all.
Thank you, Tom.
Appreciate it. So, any other questions, or,
No,
okay?
make a motion, we stand in recess until 4:30.
Second.
All
Sorry.
all in favor?
Aye.
Missouri Hospital.
They say.
I,
You don't see the number?
573.
Well,
I guess he's still.